Sweet. All right, Jack, thank you again for coming to this meeting, taking the time out to share your experiences. I think we're just going to start off with a pretty general question, just like, how did you get into the music industry? Was it something you were always interested in? Like, what's the origin story of Jack?
Sure. Origin story. Well, I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I grew up in a suburb of the Twin Cities. And both my parents were very heavily involved in music. My mom's been a private piano instructor for over 20 years now, and she was also a music teacher in the public school districts, mostly for middle and high school. And my father has worked in numerous different technology and business consulting companies. And I remember also when I was much younger that he always had so much music, and right on the cusp of the digitalization era and iTunes, we had about 56,000 songs in an iTunes library at one point. So I grew up, listening to music almost daily in my house. There wasn't hardly a day where, I'd come home from school or something like that, or, you're cleaning on the weekends and, music is just around and in your house. And honestly, the more I think about it, that's kind of the way I like to operate my life as well. just having it be a part of your everyday life. And I played the trumpet and I played a little bit of piano. And then in high school, I got into playing drum set a lot. And I was also a singer in high school. I was in a couple different bands in high school, doing the classic over to your friend's house and, let's just rip some stuff up and maybe we'll get a gig here and there and play the, high school homecoming shows and all this fun stuff. And, I never really knew where or what I wanted to do going into college. I kind of wanted to just, at the end of high school, I remember just like kind of wanted to just being in a band for as long as I could remember. And then the parents quickly ex-nayed that notion because if you knew my family, there's at least 3/4 of my family are all educators. So getting an education was something that was very important to them. So I ended up choosing and attending Augsburg University in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I initially was kind of figuring out what I wanted my degree to be, but I figured out pretty quickly that the music business, there was only 2 tracks, and it was a very young program with not a lot of people in it at Augsburg when I first started. So I chose to get a degree in business administration, but my concentration was in the music industry. So that included taking classes on artist management, booking, contracts and copyright. So a lot of the things I'm sure that you guys all learned from Dain in your classes with him. So while I was at Augsburg, I was a singer in the choirs and in the jazz ensemble. So I had that really beneficial experience of being in college ensembles, which is honestly something that's unlike an experience I've had since college to this day. And I also worked for the events department on campus, which included it was basically event planning for the college campus events. So we would do everything from, set up tables for conferences and student groups. And we were also taught how to run live audio and used all that sort of knowledge and just technology, I guess, as it came and went, just further events for the college. And I was also the I was on the activities board and ended up booking a couple of the bigger shows that Augsburg had my last 2 years there. And it was just a really good and inclusive experience for me. I was able to get really involved, and that kind of my college experience helped me a lot in preparing for getting out of college, which was a whole nother interesting situation, which I can talk about too. But yeah, it was a really good experience. I know there's a lot of people that go to college and they go to college for music, and you know, if they're especially in music performance, they go to college for music and they come out of college and they say, oh well, college didn't really do much for me. Where I can't really say that, because if it wasn't for me going to college, then I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So by the end of my senior year, I had interned for the company I work for now, which is In the Groove Music. And one of my coworkers is also an alum from the college I went to. So that's kind of how I was able to just get my in, if you will, through working in the music industry right now. And I've been there for a little over 3 years now. And I started part-time coming back, and then I ended up just staying on, and eventually started filling holes in the administration side of the business that my bosses saw, and eventually got hired full-time and have been there ever since. So, and that experience already, in the time I've been from part-time to full-time, it's the company has grown slightly, and there's all those challenges that come along with that. So that's kind of where I'm at. And you know, we could talk about for 3 hours, I'm sure, on, you know, what did we all do to adapt during the pandemic, and how did things look there, and maybe you have a question on it later, I don't know. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at generally right now. So
Yeah, I saw that In the Groove was located in Minneapolis, correct?
mhm,
Right.
that's correct.
So you kind of graduated college and you found an internship during college that was sort of nearby. Um,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of us are in similar situations. There's a lot of smaller venues and places in Lancaster, our next door neighbor. So a lot of us do sort of a similar thing. And I just wanted to ask what your internship was like. What kind of things did you do there? Skills gained, that kind of thing.
Sure. My internship was, I would basically come into the office, and we didn't have a super big office space where I interned at. So I basically sat in a chair, and then I literally had another chair that was it was just a piece of, like, a board, if you will, that was resting on the arms of the other chair where I would set my laptop. And so, excuse me, I was with 2 other ladies who I still work with, and they were part of the TV licensing side of the company. So a lot of what I did for them and in my internship was making proactive playlists for different shows based on pitches and searches that we got from the different clients that we have, or that In the Groove has, through either the blanket licensing deals or just any other production license catalog that needs work, whether that be ABC, NBC, CBS, Turner. So that's a lot of what I did. I also did some website design and a little bit promotion and just general maintenance of a lot of the systems there. And yeah, so that was about 4 months and went really, really fast. And I remember leaving that internship thinking, oh man, that'd be a really cool place to work. And didn't end up back there till about 8 months later or so. But that was my that was the gist of my internship, I guess.
So you finished your internship and then there was a gap and then you started working for the company. So what
Yep.
did you do those 8 months? Were you just kind of being a postgraduate, hanging out, or were you working during that time?
Yeah, it's, and I'm sure a lot of you will discover this after you graduate college, is I wasn't ready necessarily, or I wasn't prepared. I wouldn't say I wasn't ready. It was very shocking, the whole concept of, all right, you've been in the schooling system, at least for me, your entire life. You've had, a sort of system to help you figure out where you're going next year, what you're going to be doing. And, after college, the world really doesn't do that for you anymore. It kind of drops you on your ass a little bit, is the best way to say it. And I was initially thinking I was going to move out to Los Angeles, and I'd never been there before, but I had a lot of friends that live out there and still live out there. So I took about 2 weeks and ventured out there and had interviews lined up and applied and interviewed for these different jobs. But the entire time I was out there, I was thinking, oh, this place is like effing huge, and you have to have a car, and the traffic is murder, and I feel like I'm breathing in disgusting air the entire time, and it just wasn't for me. So I ended up coming back to Minnesota after those 2 weeks, and was like very, just kind of like, I had no idea what I was going to do, but I still had the connections and the skill set of working in the live audio engineering side and working for events. So I ended up doing a lot of contract work for about 8 months, until I picked up a part-time job at a church running audio for the services there, which I'm still there right now, just on the weekends. So it was just kind of one of those, you got to be patient, but also, reaching out to the people that were still in your corner, if you will. And then it was very interesting and happenstance that I ended up back in my company, because I literally got a text message from my former supervisor, who's now my coworker. And she said, hey, we have some administration work that needs to be done. We just picked up this new client. The new client happened to be like ABC News. So that's a pretty big deal for the company at the time. So I got a text message, and she said, hey, we need you to come back. And I said, I would love to come back, mostly because I need money. And so I started there in February of 2018 again. So I graduated in 2017, almost 4 years now. Wow. So I got back and started working, and was working with another guy that quickly became my counterpart and one of my best friends. And we both kind of revamped the administration holes of the company, because the two people that I work with were a couple of people that just kind of ran the business a little bit by the seat of their pants, and then kind of realized, oh, wow, we're growing. And, there's important details that need to be filled in when you're, running a company. So I kind of took a lot of those holes and made my case to be hired on full time, and here we are. So that was kind of it.
Yeah, I know anything to do with like publishing, licensing, it's like attention to detail is the key to success.
You're 100% correct.
And I've done a little bit of research on my own about sync licensing, publishing. I'm really interested in it, but I don't yet know a lot of people in that field that I've talked to about the actual job itself. So I'm interested to hear a little bit more about, you said you made playlists for your clients. other administrative work. I would love to hear a little bit more about the details of what you were doing at your internship and what you do now as well.
Sure. So I don't, for one, I don't make a whole lot of playlists anymore just because it's not really my job. But you know, we essentially we have, so what, all right, let me start back. My company is in what you would call the production music side of the industry. So there's other companies like mine, and there's much larger companies like mine that basically compose and have the rights free and clear to license music to television, film, internet, advertising. So we try to be a one-stop shop for, you know, editors that are working in Bay Suites that are cutting footage for, you know, the next Ben and Jerry's or Mercedes commercial, or editors that are working on news stories for 2020. And so we essentially are there to help them search our catalog to help them pick music for their projects. So as one of the composers that I work with says a lot to people, you've probably heard our music on television, but you've never listened to our music on television. So it's a very behind the scenes sort of cloak hidden section of the music industry, as I've learned more and more. And it's still one of the most viable for employment. And it's a very interesting sector of the music industry that it's in, because it encompasses a lot of, I mean, I'm basically at a desk for 8 hours a day, as much as people think, you know, desk jobs suck in the music industry. I mean, mine's actually not too bad. So I would say that, you know, we're in such an industry where it's important to know how to manage a song catalog of a product of, you know, 25,000 unique tracks, and then, you know, being able to have all the writer information, and you're registering them with all the PROs, so getting all the certain codes and the different numbers and the splits that are associated with all, you know, all these different details that go into us packaging a raw audio file, tagging it with metadata, and then getting it out into the world. So a lot of what I do on a daily basis is kind of split between actually like tagging with metadata. I don't know how much you guys know about metadata or what it is and what it does. But tagging metadata to files and tracks for releases that we have for our different clients, and then that goes into the catalog, gets registered with the PROs, and then is essentially it's used and promoted by our sales staff team and the licensing team. And so we go from there to our clients, and they hopefully use them in their productions. So that's a little bit of that side. And then my other part of my job is essentially business development. So I have essentially started now, you know, drafting all, you know, the agreements and different contracts that go out between my company and either composers we work for hire, or the independent artists that we choose to publish just on an exclusive deal. There's a lot of functions within my company that I would almost consider like record label-ish, but not totally, because we don't necessarily do the marketing. We don't have, you know, the personnel and the marketing power for that, and we haven't really wanted to explore that much more. So, but that's a little bit about what we do, about what I do. So
awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, we know a little bit about the metadata. You were mentioning that earlier. We have a sort of basic understanding. That's like the IRSC codes and uh, these unique, like almost barcodes for each song, right? It's this, it helps you identify what the song is.
In a way. And when I talk about metadata, I'm specifically talking about, because our catalog is housed on, search engines on the internet, right? So like you have within Google and, any of the other search bars that you have out in the general internet, you have to have different tagging, search engine optimization data that goes along with that. So what I do is I will tag audio files with generic keywords, and those keywords can be anything from minimal to fun, happy, sad, percussive, so there's just depending on how you run your search engine, that kind of defines how you tag the audio files, because you're not going to ask the normal person to just come to a website of a production catalog of 25,000 tracks like we run and say, hey, yeah, here you go. You can't just lead them to a blank site and say, yeah, go find some music. So you have to have those words associated with whatever your client might want to be using. So if an editor from 2020 comes in and says, hey, I need this track that I have this spot, this scene that's, it's about murder, somebody's getting killed in this news story, right? Well, then you have to hopefully have some direct path for them to find some really, really ominous and scary music for that piece. So that's kind of what I mean about, tagging with the metadata and search engine optimization for how we run things. So that's about half of what I do, and we do that internally. So
Okay, I think I got you. It's helping your clients find the music that they're looking for.
Yep.
By searching keywords. Okay, yeah,
Correct.
that makes sense. Yep. Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I blanked for a second there.
All good.
You mentioned that you got to the company and it was starting to grow, and it was maybe growing at a faster pace than the owners were ready for, and that there were these holes that you were sort of identifying and solving.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the kinds of things you did to help the company grow? I don't know how I want to word this. Help the company keep pace with the growth it was seeing.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, as general rule of thumb, as a company grows and as your business grows, you need more people to help run it, help turn the wheels or the valves in the machine, as you will. So what I ended up doing mostly is just kind of refining our we had a database system that was not really fully utilized before I got there, and I'm not sure how much you guys know about the database system. It's an Apple subsidiary called FileMaker. It's now called Claris. We run most of our data, most of our internal processes, administrative processes through that database. But there was a lot of things still being done on spreadsheets, and the way that we used to distribute music was basically taking raw audio files and plugging in through 4 different CSVs to match different metadata fields and templates that our different clients needed. And one of the first things I did was essentially say, all right, let's compartmentalize that and make that a process where we can get this done much faster, and essentially just click a button and have it upload to our search engines. So that was one of the first things that me and my counterpart did when I got hired on. Is we took the process of how we got music and was packaging up for our clients to use, and then kind of expedited that quicker. So we actually have, for the last 2 years in a row now, have doubled. We've grown our music input to our catalog about 200%. So that was one of the first things I did. And then one of my bosses was formerly in charge of distributing the agreements to people that we send work for hires to, and the other artists, on top of just different clients. But he never really did a really good job of filing all those things in necessary proper places. So I had a bunch of work doing that, and I'm still doing that, because 25 years of running a business, and if you're not filing things away, that means there's still tons of things left over that you need to account for. So that's kind of what I did for him as well. And so I did that, and covered a playlist or two here or there for clients when somebody was gone on vacation, or that's generally, that's just kind of the first few things I remember doing there. More recently, it's been managing the growth of our usage of music as it continues to grow, and then as our ingestion of projects continues to grow, and our output of music to our search engines continue to grow. So I'm currently discussing with my boss how to properly manage that, and we'll see where that goes.
So again, there are these aspects of attention to detail that can make or break an operation like this.
Yep.
And it sounds like you kind of came in and started paying attention to those details and putting stuff go.
There was a response. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the accountant that works for us, he had mentioned that mine and my counterpart's response to that situation was handled better than it was in the past, because we had the proper documentation or whatever we needed to back up and resolve that situation. So it kind of is just, it's kind of one of those things where you slowly, your work is not necessarily realized today, but potentially later down the road. So
yeah, definitely. So this is a sync licensing panel.
mm-hmm.
And I did want to get a little bit into that side of this. I try to explain sync licensing to people fairly regularly, and it's not the easiest thing to do.
Sure.
But I'm going to task you with giving us your basic perspective of what sync licensing is, why it's important to know what it is, and just sort of like, if you could just give us like the building blocks we would need to understand what sync licensing is all about.
Sure. So sync licensing, all right, simplest way to put it is somebody's got a song and somebody's got a piece of content that they want to marry up a song to. So let's take a Subaru commercial, for example. You got this, epic new BRZ or whatever their new model is, and they are looking for music to go along with that spot to eventually, show to broadcast, cut it up into different 15 or 30-second videos for social media, anything that they want to do that for. So, sorry, one second. This is the most I've talked like straight in a long time while having the sore throat. So just give me 1 second. So what a 50-ounce water bottle will do for you. It helps. Anyway, so you have this piece of content, and you know, the editor or the creative director, I'll give you, this is a real life example. Editor or creative director will come to the head of our advertising department and say, hey, I've got this, the terms are, you know, we want to use this for 15-second videos or a 30-second video or a full length 90-second to whatever commercial spot you want to make. The media is included as, you know, what type of media it's going to be. So if it's internet only, if it's industrial, which means it's going to be used, you know, in like just branding packages for something. If it's going to be on broadcast, which means it's going to be on national television. And then there's territory. It's like, okay, what do you want? Where do you want this to cover? Do you want this covered in the United States? Do you want this to cover the world? And then what's the term? And then the proposed fee comes after all those. And the proposed fee for a song for this track for the Subaru spot could be $10,000, right? So what we try to do is match the best possible, and what you match is the best possible song for that content. And the idea is, if your song wins the playlisting and whatever for the creative for that content, then you get the licensing fee. So it's not rocket science. It's actually, once you get down to it, it's pretty simple to understand. I think the big question is, you know, how do you get a sync license? And sync licensing is not necessarily one of those, you know, just, oh, well, there's an app for that. You know, there's really not an app for getting a sync license. There's, you know, there's a myriad of connections and companies and people that you have to know and email addresses you have to hit. And, you know, if you're one of those people that you can get to that, then you're doing pretty good. But and I've seen it a lot, especially within the last couple of years, where sync licenses are actually going way down, and a lot of people are getting either free music that they don't have to pay for, or they're just making music themselves in-house for their own spots. So it really just depends. I think it's going to be pretty interesting how sync licensing, and if that traditional model of what I just described will be continuing going forth within the next 10 years in the music industry, because I just don't know if companies and, you know, the big production studios for television and film are going to be using, you know, a lot of outside music unless it's really, really popular or it's really, really good. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question. We could go a little bit deeper into that if you want, but
yeah, answers my question. Yeah.
Cool.
Basically, you have this catalog of songs and you're presenting them to different companies, different productions, and
Yep.
they pick out the one that they want. And if you're lucky enough to be the big winner, then you take home a little bit of money.
That's correct. that's the grand gist of it, I would say. So
right. And you said you're not sure what the future of sync is going to look like. Do you have any idea? Do you have any predictions of as where you think it's going to go?
I really think and predict that And this especially goes within the advertising side of things. I think a lot of companies are moving towards, and this is what my company tries to pitch a lot to advertisers, is the notion of, we will create something for you. We'll create a specific piece of music for your brand spot, and you will get to own all the rights for it free and clear for paying a fee to us, the company, for composing it for you. I think that there's a lot of really, really big media conglomerates that are continuously trying to get in these sort of unfavorable, or a really big issue is the issue of rev share from a lot of the different. So I think a lot of the studios will start saying to the different companies like mine, hey, we like your catalog of music, but we don't want to be paying, $1,000+ sync licenses for all, the things that we need to get done. So here's a generalized, here's a blanket agreement, a blanket sync license for us to use your entire catalog for, X fee, right? That's a model that my company is in, and we have our different reasonings for being in those, even though the world of being fair in terms of royalty payouts at the end of the day, and our operating revenue as a company, and it's not, it can't necessarily be tied to those kinds of deals, because long term they're not really productive for us as a company that's trying to grow. So it's just interesting, and there's lots more places. There's tons of free sites that you can get free production music. You can get free samples from everywhere, pre-cleared. Sample libraries are huge still, and they will continue to be as long as they're free. It's not, I'd like to think that companies and productions and all these different studios would look at the value of their content, and look at the value of what's being made with their content, and know that the music is a huge part of it. But it's going to be an interesting next few years, as I don't know if we'll see as many syncs for independent companies like mine and independent artists. I don't know if we'll see those go up. I think we'll continue to see those go down, but I'm not sure. So
dang, that's kind of sad.
Well, that's reality.
I mean, Dain talk about
yep,
the different sync placements he's landed for bands and with his own groups, and how they've been so lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
And it does seem like it's becoming less lucrative as time goes on, or just less common in general.
I just think the model is changing. I think the way that people get music for their content, because every sort of production you're going to be seeing, it's going to be all about the content. How much content can we put out into the world? You got tons of advertisers and studios vying for people's attention, that they need to get things out as quickly as possible, and they need to promote their new product, the new movie, the new game. I mean, it all is just, it's going so fast that I don't know if the music industry, once again, is catching up quick enough to the things that need to properly be exploited. I think that the model, I just think the model is going to be changing a little bit. I don't think it'll totally go away. I think the uses and the fees for sync licensing will still be there. It's just going to depend on where that content will end up living out in the world. So, and a lot of that is not up for anybody like me or my company to decide. We're just trying to get music to people that need it. So that's kind of my thoughts on the situation. So
it's all very interesting to hear about, especially someone like me who doesn't have a whole lot of insight into the world of sync licensing. It's really interesting to hear about from someone who's in it. And I kind of want to away from the concept of sync licensing, kind of move back to what you do in your job. And just, I wanted to ask what kind of skills or what kind of traits, like character traits, make for a good employee in the kind of line of work that you do. Like, what are some good things to know how to do? What are some good skills to have?
First thing I'll say is Office 365. Know that in and out. Know how to run a spreadsheet. Know how to navigate a Word document. Know how to use a lot of just general business administration applications. And communication. There's tons of people, and I've worked with now probably it's within the hundreds of artists now, and different people and composers and producers. Communication and the timeliness and how you communicate with people is essential. It is important that you take the time to answer people's questions. It's important that you take the time to make sure every detail is hit, especially when you're talking deal points of a legally binding agreement. And specifically for what I do, and what I will attribute a lot of my education back to classes with Dain, is knowing the terminology and the different ways that copyright language and contract language will appear to you in, just in your daily working, because I can say that I've received, probably over 50 different templates of, different licensing agreements or blanket agreements that essentially say, all right, here's what we want to use your catalog for. Here's how long we want to use it for before we either have to renew this agreement or X, Y, and Z. And here are the terms, yada, yada, down the list of, all right, where is this going to be used? How much, when are you supposed to report to us on our accounting? When is, where are the laws that this will be governed in? So being able to pay attention and knowing what those are have all prepared me a lot for what I do. So yeah, I guess that's the biggest, those are the biggest things. And then just, don't be an asshole is the best way I can say it. Is, it doesn't matter if you're, coolest thing since sliced bread, man. If you're not a good person to work with, it makes it very hard to support as a team member. So, and and what I work in my working environment, we have my company's not very big, so it's a lot of, it feels like I'm part of a football team, if you will. So there's 12 of us that work in the company, and one person's actions can affect another person's job and what they do. So being able to at times stop what you're doing and help your coworker out. That's important. Being able to look at a situation you may not know a whole lot about and say, all right, well, what do I think about this? Having an opinion on things is important. So yeah, just general rule of life. Don't be an asshole. Work with people, smile, crack a joke once in a while, take people out for lunch or drinks, whatever you need to do. It's a lot of life, and a lot of life is what I've experienced too, is about the attitude and how you wake up every day. We actually just had a really good conversation about this as a company last week, setting healthy boundaries for yourself, being accountable for the time that you work for. You get paid to work a certain amount of hours, and that's your responsibility in that should be your boundary. So as one of my bosses likes to say, we work to have a life, we don't live to work. So just being able to keep all that in your head at the same time will help you in any position really that you end up going into. So
I think we should start posting quotes from our panelists after the panel. Don't be.
I was just thinking that was like so encouraging.
No, seriously, it was. Yeah, I like that.
I mean, it's kind of nice because I don't really consider myself too far removed from where you guys are at. I'm only 4 years out of my undergrad, and so it's nice for me to be able to do these now, while I still have these experiences fresh in my head and can kind of relate to them. So yeah, because I absolutely relate to the uneasiness of graduating and maybe not knowing what you want to do, and then just kind of finding your place, kind of like what I did. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, no, that was a really good 2 or 3 of solid advice. Like, you were just firing for a bit there. And it sounds like a really good culture too in the company you work for. You're having these meetings and having conversations about this stuff. That's really encouraging to hear.
Well, nothing's ever perfect, but I certainly don't want to work for and look for anything else at this point. So I'm still very, very happy where I'm at. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Sounds like it. I think we're definitely ready to open up for questions. If anybody has any questions they want to ask Jack, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. You can drop them in the chat if you want, if you're feeling a little shy. But yeah, Q&A session is open. Go for it, y'all.
Someone please ask a question.
Don't everybody jump at once.
I know, I wanted somebody to ask a question before me. So I was just curious about I don't know, I know like you said you didn't really like the area of LA, but was that the only thing that kind of drove you out of not wanting to be there and that big of a city and that big of a community in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people that now, when this virus finally goes away, I love going out to LA, and I've been to a few different conferences on behalf of my company out there. I love going out there. I love it's a really, really good community of people. It just wasn't for me. So there's nothing saying that you shouldn't try to go out there if you're really feeling it. I will just say, be very realistic and mindful of how much you can afford to live out there, especially as a person in your early 20s. And because I will tell you right now, I still probably could not afford to live out in Los Angeles where I'd want to live. So that it just wasn't a place for me, and I fully acknowledge that. And but there's nothing to say that visiting, for at least for me, visiting LA is awesome. I love going out to LA for a week or so, especially to escape the frickin' winters here. And I've really good, my friends that live out there are independent artists that are essentially some of them are influencers on social media. So I've got a good group of people that are out there that just live their artist dream out there, and I live what I think I want to do here. So yeah, I hope that kind of answered your question.
No, yeah, definitely did. Thanks.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure that Dain did do hypotheticals for you guys too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
just making sure that that's something that has just always been happening, because
Nope.
it is the best part of his class.
Oh man, he would include hypotheticals are such a great way to learn, honestly. I mean, because hypotheticals are always based on something of real life. So especially for guys like us that have been in it. So it's really, you guys are lucky to have Dain. I missed Dain even after I graduated. You know, he's one of those guys where I wish I could just pick up the phone and say, hey, let's go get a beer. But unfortunately, you guys, or fortunately for you, you all have him. So
Yeah, no, he is a blessing in this department for sure. And his hypotheticals are legendary. And I'm so glad that he recommended you to come do this panel. Honestly, it's been a really good one. I'll give it a little bit more time to see if anybody has any more questions, but at this point, we're probably good to just ask our final panel question.
sure. And I'm kind of curious, you know, are any of you like musicians, just like you making music yourselves? And
We all have to be musicians to be in this degree program
okay,
to some
Yeah.
degree.
cool.
Mhm. Yeah, and everyone on this board is talented musician.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's really, that's good, because I think, you know, it's hard to work in the music industry if you don't at least know how music works and where it comes from. So every single person in the company I work for are all musicians, you know, multi-instrumentalists, singers, etc. So it's good. That's encouraging. Good.
Do you feel like you have time, like, to do your own, like, the amount of time that you'd want to have to do your own music?
You know, I'll be real honest with you. I don't. I work 6 days a week as of right now. So, but I will say that, excuse me, I'll say that I'm not really one of those people that necessarily enjoys the creative process with other people. I don't know. It's very weird for me to describe. And if I had, you know, I would say 4 months free of my life, I would probably actually like looking at Logic Pro here and there. But there's a part of me, and I tell this to people all the time, you know, even though I work a desk job, there's a lot of things I love about working a desk job, but the one thing I don't like about working a desk job is the fact that I'm staring at a computer for roughly 7.5 to 8 hours plus a day. So that kind of deters me a little bit from kind of doing more music on my own, because I know how music is made, and a lot of it is just based in computers. And at the end of the day, I usually like to just kind of take a step back from that, either enjoy a lot of things outside. I love being outside. I love, doing some yard work and being out on a boat, and I love to hunt and fish. So, but what I really trained in specialty wise was classical music singing. So I've been a part of choirs for a long time, and I'm I'm desperately needing to get into one once the pandemic is over. And because it was interesting, like right before the pandemic hit, I was talking about finding another ensemble to join, and here we are a year plus later, and unfortunately still I'm not in an ensemble. So that's kind of what I like to do extracurricular wise. But
If we don't have any more questions, again, I just want to say thanks, Jack, for coming to the panel and sharing your insights. It's always really good to hear from somebody who is like a more recent graduate, because like the older people get, like the less they kind of relate with the environment that college is now, because it's not the same as what it always has been.
yep.
So
And I have to commend you all on being able to. My younger brother is currently finishing up his undergrad, and the things that he's had to unfortunately not experience, the last year or so of college has been really hard. So I commend you all for, adapting and learning how to live and work in the world that we live in. And I promise you, it will serve you well, postgraduate. So I commend you all for doing that. And just keep your head up. Everything will eventually turn around and get better, hopefully. So
absolutely it will. Totally 100% believe this year even things are going to start to get a lot better.
Yep, I agree.
So yeah, thanks again for coming, sharing your insights, sharing your advice. It's all super valuable to us. Thank you for hyping us up to making us feel good. If you have any last pieces of advice for us college kids, we would love to hear it.
Well, first of all, you're not kids anymore. If you're over 18, you're an adult. So make sure you realize that, and make sure other adults realize that as well. There's just be an open-minded person, learn something new every day, take in advice and experiences from other people that are not you, and you will be a much better person for it, and it will help you immensely in whatever you choose to do. So I don't know, I guess that's what I got. So this has been a pleasure for me. I enjoy doing these, and I hope that you all get something out of it. Please take care of my former professor, and if any of you have any other questions at any point, Michael, I'll actually shoot you my work email. It's I just put it in the chat here real quick. So that's my work email. If anybody wants to reach out, with follow-up questions, I'd be happy to respond. So
awesome, Jack. Thanks again so much. This has been a pleasure. Take care of yourself. Stay safe out there. Hopefully things will be a little more relaxed in the coming months.
Absolutely. Go listen to Prince tonight in tribute. So my favorite is probably not Purple Rain. It's probably oh shoot, I can't remember what the album that Controversy is on, but go listen to that album tonight.
All his songs are hits. Just listen to them all.
All right, well, thank you all, and have a great rest of the night and great rest of the year, semester, and best of luck.